This is the second video of See the Patterns. What was it? About the currents in space causing different things. I can't remember the title. But here's the thing. The reason why a lot of people do debunking and stuff is because these people are either lying or on purpose or have been misled, and they're misleading other people, and they actually get a lot of money. Like the Electric Universe has their Sapphire project. They haven't released any information or data on it or how it's run or anything like that, which is in a scientific way would have, in a scientific experiment would have done. And they're claiming all kinds of things. And they've spent about $10 million, which is non-taxpayer money. So that money must have came from somewhere, from a rich investor or selling books or conferences or revenue from YouTube ads or whatever. I ran into these guys years ago. I was on a blog called Bad Astronomy by Phil Plait, and they would always come on, oh, this looks like an electric universe. This looks like an electric current and blah, 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 and it had nothing to do with electric currents. So basically that's where I got started with this. But yeah, they're a sneaky lot, and they misrepresent a lot of the stuff that they do. So that's why I do it. So hope you enjoyed the video. Bye. And I'll talk a little bit. Just a moment.
In a discharge tube, it often produces electrostatic double layers. This is nothing new and has been known for about 100 years. These double layers will form even if there is no magnetic field present, and this will cause an acceleration to the charged particles and no appreciable electric field. Double layers are often produced at the point where the diameter of the discharge tube changes. The energy released in the double layer can be so large that it can cause the glass tube to glow or even implode. These double layers often oscillate and emit noise with a broadband frequency spectrum. In this setup, the power is supplied by a voltage source in the circuit, which could be located at any distance from the setup. The energy is transferred to the double layer through the electrical circuit, and the behavior of the double layer depends not only on the plasma parameters near it, but also on the resistance and the inductance in the whole circuit. Larger inductance would cause the double layer to explode, and as the circuit is broken, the magnetic energy is released very rapidly. This means that the plasma column can be likened to a metal wire surrounded by an insulator, and the double layer as a non-linear circuit element. We know that at the dawn side of the auroral zone, there are currents flowing into the auroral zone at high latitudes and leaving the zone at lower latitudes. At the evening side, these currents will be reversed. These currents flow in sheets along the magnetic field lines and are called Birkeland currents. The circuit is closed in the upper ionosphere and in the plasma near the equatorial plane. A spacecraft passing over these would measure a voltage inversion. Above the double layers, the equipotential lines form cylinders around the current-carrying flux tube, similar to what happens in the laboratory. Below the double layer, there is a beam of high-energy electrons accelerated, at least in part, in the double layer. Most of their energy is dissipated in the ionosphere, where they produce the aurora. Again, this is similar to the laboratory experiments where the charged particles are accelerated in the tube. He identifies that the main sources of this energy in the magnetosphere circuit is the kinetic energy of the sunward plasma due to the solar wind.
Okay, the kinetic energy coming from the solar wind, kind of right. It's actually more due to flares and coronal mass ejections, which peak every 11 years. We're in the middle of it. That's why we had a big display recently. But how it works is the current comes, the particles come in on the magnetic field lines and come down, and they excite the atoms and cause them to emit light. And actually, somebody's got a good explanation with diagrams. Just one moment here.
This is the process by which an incoming photon of a specific frequency can interact with an excited atom electron, causing it to drop to a lower energy level. The liberated energy transfers to the electromagnetic field, creating a new photon with a frequency, polarization, and direction of travel that are all identical to the photon of the incident wave. In most media, there are a higher proportion of electrons in a lower energy state, so absorption will dominate. If, however, there are more atoms with electrons in an excited state, stimulated emissions will dominate. In this case, a net optical amplification can be achieved.
Sorry for the bad recording quality there, but I just grabbed it quickly. But you can see Gareth is not a dummy. He just has a bias against certain things in science. But but that's the basically principle. The electron gets stimulated, and then it comes, and then when it wants to go back down to the lowest energy level, and then it emits light. It's different for each kind of atom and molecule because it depends on the mass and of the nucleus and a few other factors. But so basically that's why you get all different kinds of light. One light, red is, I think, nitrogen, or it depends. It also depends on pressure, so it's kind of hard to tell just off of what color it is. You have to take the spectrum of it. But that's why we have the aurora borealis. Yeah, there's no big currents traveling between the sun and the earth. Plus, it's also contradictory that he has the solar wind and and that there is a current headed towards the sun. I think that's what you're about to talk about in a second here, because one would cancel out the other. Okay.
Version. Above the double layers, the equipotential lines form cylinders around the current-carrying flux tube, similar to what happens in the laboratory. Below the double layer, there is a beam of high-energy electrons accelerated, at least in part, in the double layer. Most of their energy is dissipated in the ionosphere, where they produce the aurora. Again, this is similar to the laboratory experiments where the charged particles are accelerated in the tube. He identifies that the main sources of this energy in the magnetosphere circuit is the kinetic energy of the sunward plasma due to the solar wind. To date, only the equatorial plane current system has been measured. These show that the radial component of the current is about 3 times 10 to the 9 amps. From Kirchhoff's law, we can conclude that this current flowing towards the sun must be closed by currents leaving the sun, which means that there must be a high latitude outward current, which, in the case of symmetry, would be 1.5 times 10 to the 9 amps in each hemisphere. Due to the solar wind. To date, only the equatorial plane current system has been measured. These show that the radial component of the current is about 3 times 10 to the 9 amps. From Kirchhoff's law, we can conclude that this current flowing towards the sun must be closed by currents leaving the sun, which means that there must be a high latitude outward current, which, in the case of symmetry, would be 1.5 times 10 to the 9 amps in each hemisphere.
Okay, for this video, I'm going to leave it at that because we're almost at the 10-minute limit. I get 10 to 15 minutes on YouTube, but he, as I said, there is no. I don't think anybody has measured a current towards the sun, It's kind of news to me. It's kind of be a big news. So either he's just making something up, or or he's got some kind of secret source that the rest of us don't have. So yeah, it's not really based off of their proofs are not really based off of real evidence. It's based off of, wow, this is what our scientists thought 40 years ago. Aflin was actually a really good scientist. I think he actually got the Nobel Prize before working on magnetic fields. But he did go a little too far with magnetic fields for a while. But then he went back to kind of the standard view of things. But these guys don't like certain aspects of modern cosmology or science or astronomy, so they'll make up these alternate views to explain away things. But I'm going to leave it at that. I don't know when I'm going to do the next one, but yeah, I've got to break these videos up into parts. As I said, I don't think Gareth is stupid or anything. I just think he's gone down the wrong path in this way. And I hope you have a good night, and if you want to, you can like and subscribe. Bye.